What's up, everybody? This is Chris Elliott here with Tom Long of Real Art Tacoma. Hey, Tom, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Thank you. Um, so yeah, you and I met kind of over Twitter and, you know, living near Tacoma, we were talking about a lot of the same shows and bands and seeing things. Um,
Yeah.
but one thing I never learned is like how you got started in Real Art Tacoma and kind of like what the real art mission is. I've heard a little bit from you unofficially, but for those who
Yeah.
don't know,
So yeah, we started Real Art in 2015. Me and a group of friends started this. It was me, Josh Brumley, Brian Skiffington, Phil Peterson, and Alex Shellhammer that started Real Art.
mm,
And then after a couple of years of doing it, a couple people had to walk away and move on for different reasons. And then I was the last one to remain. So I wanted to keep it going. And then here we are. We're on our 11th year. So
yeah, and that's extra impressive considering like, the pandemic and then like how many places had to shut down.
yeah.
Um, what is it that's kind of kept you guys afloat, so to speak?
What's good about us is we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we not only do we get money from the shows that we put on, we're also receiving funding from other organizations that help keep the arts
Mhm.
accessible to the youth. So we get funding from Tacoma Creates, the Seattle Arts Fund,
Mm,
through the um, Paul Allen grant,
mm.
uh, and then we're trying to get other organizations that fund 501c3 nonprofits to donate to us as well.
Okay, so you've got a bit of support coming in from different areas. And the few,
And what? And,
oh yeah, go ahead.
oh yeah, sorry. What did keep us going during the pandemic was the the federal government did grants through the SBA
Mm,
where they gave out, I think, it was like some like millions of dollars to different organizations, and they were just grants where we didn't have, they weren't loans that we had to pay back. So I think we ended up getting a grant through that, and then there was also the Washington Nightlife Music Association that was doing
nice.
uh, grants. Uh, they were holding like events and getting donors and giving out grant money for that as well. So that really helped us during the pandemic.
Very nice. And the three or four times I was able to make it there, you've obviously included a number of projects since then, but like, the bathrooms had some free, hygiene supplies and things like that,
Yeah,
which was
yeah.
really nice. Um, and I know you've worked kind of tirelessly to like update and expand it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a storefront there too, right? Or is that a separate
Yeah.
endeavor? Okay.
So we have Beyond Thunderdome and
Mm,
Thunderdome. So Beyond Thunderdome is our cafe that kind of works in tandem with the music venue. It's a
mm-hmm.
coffee shop and a sandwich spot that's open during the day and during shows.
Hmm.
So that helps get consistent money to come through. And then we also have the clothing store that we started back in 2015 as well. That was something that I was like mostly involved in when we first started Real Art because uh, I wasn't really a part of the music venue at the
Hmm.
very beginning. I was mostly just um, a way to have something happening at the music venue where during the daytime when there's no events, things like
Hmm.
that, we would have a way for us to generate funds. And I was basically paying rent to Real Art to rent that space.
Hmm.
And then the original intent was when we had we were gonna have two storefronts, basically what we have now. But back then we were gonna rent out the right hand side
Hmm.
to a coffee shop that kind of fell through for whatever reason. I'm not really sure, but that just didn't work out for us. So We ended up renting out to a record label that was doing tape duplications and CDs,
Hmm.
and then that ran for a little while, and then it was just vacant. And then we thought we'd get another print shop to come through, and then I ended up partnering with Making Music Print and Design, so we
Hmm.
run that in the building as well. So we have a lot of it's kind of a mixed use place,
Yeah.
trying to do a little bit of everything. That way, the burden of paying rent is not just on shows. So we have
Yeah.
subleases that we rent out, but it just so happens to be that I'm the one who's renting out everything with my business partners. So we're doing the sandwich shop, the clothing store, and the print shop all in the same building.
Yeah, and the print shop I've seen, you've been able to help a few bands like when they were on tour and for whatever reason they needed a shirt or two made up. You were
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
provide that, right?
yeah. So anytime there will be like a last minute thing where a band's routed to play, they run out of merch and they need to hit us up.
Mm,
They can hit us up last minute and be like, "Hey, what would it cost us to do like a last minute run of shirts?" Or, "Hey, we're routed to play Tacoma, Seattle, Portland. We're gonna be in your area in like a month's time. Like, will we be able to get some shirts done
mm,
through you guys?" So like, and we get a lot of like bands from Canada and stuff coming through, and they're like, "Oh, it's a lot to carry all their gear,"
mm.
so they'll just have it shipped here or have it printed here and then shipped. So kind of works out.
Yeah, it seems to, really work out because I've seen a few of the designs you guys have come up and they're great and everything.
Yeah.
But on top of all that stuff you already mentioned, you've done a few, like you have a food pantry thing, right? Where you guys will
We
collect
yeah, we
food.
did for almost like 8 months. We had a
Okay.
food pantry. We kind of moved away from that because it was the after a while people were just not really coming by to get food
Okay.
items or any hygiene items or anything like that. So we ended up uh, kind of dissolving it, but it'll probably come back up once the holidays comes around because that's
Yeah.
when it started. And then people were donating, people were coming to grab stuff. We were doing um, people could donate money, and we were giving away free food to people that were in need.
Hmm.
We ran that. It was supposed to be just for like a December, like November, December thing during the holidays, and then it kind of ran like up until like a month ago.
Hmm.
We were still doing that.
Nice.
So and then it just ran out of money. So and then people kind of stopped doing the pay it forward thing. So
Hmm.
when it picks back up again, I think we'll probably do it again.
Yeah. I mean, that's already a lot for you guys to do. And then of course there's the music venue part
Yeah,
itself.
yeah.
Um, my experience with real art has been largely a lot of like the hardcore kind of metalcore shows, and you
Mm-hmm.
guys have had some crazy shows there. You've hosted Jag a number of times, right? Just another gig.
Yeah, we ran Jag from the inception when Zach Ellis, who's one of four people in Brainstem Productions, so it's
Hmm.
like Zach, Hannah, Caleb, and Matt. Um, when he started Jag, it was supposed to be a quarterly show,
Hmm.
and then it ended up just like the first one happened, and then kind of the pandemic happened, and kind of put like a little damper on like doing more shows. But then he decided that it was going to be more of like a yearly thing,
Okay.
and then yeah, we ran Jag up until I think Jag 5 is the last one we did. So we did the first Jag all the way up to Jag 5,
Hmm.
and then it moved over to Airport Tavern. So it's still on the same block, and then we do like the pre-shows now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Airport's a little bit bigger. I'm not sure of your capacity.
yeah. Our cap is 300.
Okay.
Sometimes we could stretch it to 350 depending on what show it is. But Airport Tavern, I think their cap is like 600, something
Ooh.
like that.
Okay.
So they can like double the amount of people that they can have as opposed to what we can do. So that's why
Yeah.
they're doing it over there.
Well, and like some of those shows are huge, and I know Tara's been there. Biohazard was there recently, right? Was it
Yeah,
Bio?
so we for Jag, the last Jag it had Biohazard. So
Yeah.
that was over at the Airport Tavern.
Yeah.
And
And dozens of bands, throughout the
yeah,
different Jag. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the last time Terror came through, they played in Seattle most recently, but the time before that, I think it was last year, they specifically asked to play here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's become really an incredible haven, but it is all ages, and you guys get a lot of varying events in there, and different
Hmm.
different gigs in there. I'm sure a lot of locals. What's it like from your, because I know you're also a big fan, obviously.
Hmm.
What's it like trying to balance all these different shows right now, with kind of the post-pandemic realities?
Yeah, I feel like post pandemic, it kind of, I think hardcore and punk music kind of blew up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, because there was a little bit of a lull pre-pandemic, especially for like a lot of touring bands.
Mhm.
But then I feel like some of the bands that got their starts here kind of just skyrocketed a little bit. So like bands like Drain, um, Dying Wish,
Mm.
those bands, they kind of blew up, and then they became way bigger than what this venue could hold.
Yeah.
But it's kind of crazy that a lot of those bands got their starts here. I think the last time Drain came through and they played Seattle, I think they did a sold out show at the Showbox.
Nice.
They mentioned playing at Real Art for 10 people, 10 to 15 people.
Yeah.
And they shouted us out because it was one of their earlier shows where it was, I think, maybe 2017 or 18, I think,
Okay.
around that time frame. And they did play the first Jag too. So a lot of the bands that played the first Jag really blew up. So like Scowl, Dying
Oh,
Wish, Train, Gulch, like a lot of those bands that played the first Jag, um, they all became pretty big bands, and it's pretty cool
yeah.
to see.
Yeah. Drain just played out here with Haywire and a few others at the Palladium out here, which it holds, I think it's, if it's the whole thing, it's got to be like 1,500, something like that. And it was a
Yeah,
no
yeah,
barricade show, and it was wild. I was supposed to go, couldn't make it, but all the footage was insanity.
yeah. It's dope to see bands like that playing with no barricade.
Yeah.
And even just seeing Biohazard at Airport Tavern with no barricade was insane and probably one of the greatest things in my life.
And those guys still have it. I saw them not too long ago, a couple months ago,
Oh
and
yeah.
man, the crowd, they got some diehards for sure.
Yeah, they played like a bunch of new stuff, and then they also played a lot of the early stuff. They didn't play anything off of State of the World Address, which kind of bummed me out because that was like
Oh,
the album that got me into Biohazard when I was
y-
14.
yeah.
But they played so many songs off Urban Discipline, so that, I mean, that is always good.
Yeah. Yeah, those guys are still killing. And since the pandemic, I've caught Dying Wish a number of times. I enjoy seeing them, but they're always part of a great tour package too. And it seems like,
Yeah,
and I don't know if you've seen it there, but it seems like that's part of the success of all these bands is there'll be two or three of them touring together, and it's just massive at that point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
So
cool to see packages like that come through, and sometimes they'll be those bands will be at a stage where they can still do a 300 cap room and then play
yeah,
here, which is really nice. So it's like kind of seeing like we're like the next step in their progression of being like this crazy huge band that's gonna do like like arenas and whatnot.
yeah, yeah. You look at like places like CBGB's, right, back in the day, and it didn't really matter who the band was. It was like that became the place to play.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think Real Art's got a bit of that pulse going on.
yeah.
Um,
It took
yeah.
some time for us to get to that point, but I feel like that's kind of where we're headed because we had a show. We did like a harsh noise show last Sunday,
Mm.
and then there we had a group of kids that came out that were just like, "Oh, what brings you into this show?" Like, "Oh, we just wanted to come to Real Art. Like, we don't even know who's playing tonight. We're just here to see the show." So it's like that's pretty dope that we're getting to that point where maybe like 5 or 6 years ago it wasn't really like that. So it's cool to see how the kids are just out there going to shows. Like when I started going to shows, I would just go to shows. Like I would just find out, hey, bands are playing here like
Hmm.
on the weekends. Like I don't even know who's playing. I just heard there was a hardcore show or
Hmm.
there's a punk show. I'm just gonna go see what's up. Like I don't even know what it is, but I'm just gonna see. Like my friends are gonna be there. I'll be there. It'll be fun.
Yeah. It's been great because the hardcore bands and punk bands like notoriously expanding the types of places they'll play.
Yeah,
Very DIY. One of the last hardcore shows I caught here was inside of an art studio, and it wasn't a very big place. And like, this is people are going in and paying to do art, and then they just like move everything out of the way, and then the bands came through later, and
yeah, yeah,
it's really cool to see communities embracing that, even though, concerts, there's some risk there, there's some damage that can happen, things like that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
places are opening up more and more. And, um, I don't know. I think that during the pandemic, people realized like what they lost when concerts weren't available.
yeah, yeah,
And so now I think we see more people willing to take more of a chance on hosting shows and doing things like that. But I don't know, it didn't really change much for you guys because you were a venue beforehand, right?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've been doing this since 2015.
Mhm.
What's funnier than that is like as a organization, like on paper we're still the Viaduct. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Viaduct, but that started in 2007 and has been running pretty much since its inception, just as other entities. So
Oh.
it was Viaduct till 2010, and then when Red Room happened, Viaduct just did a DBA as Red Room, and
Oh,
then when Red Room closed, we started Real Art. So it kind of just morphed into from Viaduct to what we are now. So it's just kind of taking the legacy and just keeping it going.
nice. Yeah, people have talked about other, venues in that area, and mostly Seattle, like what they used to be, right? Elko used to be the
Yeah,
off ramp and stuff like
yeah.
that, and a few places closed and reopened in different locations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then from your perspective, right, there's Tom like the businessman, but there's Tom the fan. How do you balance out when you're like booking shows or prepping stuff? Like, are there two different approaches, or is it kind of one and the same?
It's kind of one and the same, really. I mean, there we have other people that book shows with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kevin Olmedo is our like main house booker, and then like I work with other bookers like Brainstem and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot to like book shows with us. So it's a cool, like really amazing collaborative effort between us and the community, because what we are a DIY punk hardcore venue, like at the core. Like
Mm-hmm.
we do all types of music. We do hip hop, we do indie, alternative, like we do everything.
Mm-hmm.
But at the core of what we are, like we're known for being a punk hardcore venue. So like at the end of the day, that's what we do the most.
Yeah.
Like I think this weekend we have a metalcore show and a hardcore show, and then sprinkled in with a singer songwriter thing going on in the middle of
Hey.
that. So a little
All right.
sandwich. So starting it pretty heavy and then ending it heavy, but kind of keeping it light in the middle. So it's pretty cool to have like a diverse, uh, you know, diverse artists come through and perform here, and kind of just bringing kids in and
Mm-hmm.
kind of that are trying to discover who they are. So we're kind of the bridge for that. So it kind of gets them familiar with like booking shows, attending shows, like seeing like how they can be involved, because at the end of the day what we're doing is we're trying to get the next group of kids to come up and
Mm-hmm.
just basically run this scene, because I'm going to be 50 relatively soon. I'm
Mm-hmm.
4 years away from that. So like I don't know how much longer I can keep it going for me, but the people that want to like come in and take it over, that's what we're doing. We're just trying to build something to where they can come in, learn the ropes, and then eventually take this to the next level.
And which is such an important part of like the heavy music scenes, right? Really getting the youth to come in. You say you're close to 50, but not too long ago I saw you on the floor doing some moves. So let's
No,
not
you didn't.
listen. Yeah, man,
You didn't see that.
I just turned 48 and some of the days it's like,
Yeah.
all right, this is different than it used to be.
Oh, for sure.
But do you so like do you have bands that you're still like, man, I want this band to play here within a
Yeah,
reasonable kind of scope?
there's still a lot of bands that you know, I've been into for a long time, or like bands that are like up and coming that I know that I want to see here. So it's really cool to be involved in a space where I can say, "Oh, let's get that band to play here," and then you could just talk to us, talk to a booking agent, or maybe you could just talk to the band directly and be like,
Hmm.
"Hey, come play here." And we've kind of gotten to the point where we have a pretty big following,
Hmm.
and there's bands out there that have been seeing videos on Hate 56 and things like that. They go, "Oh, this place is like a legendary venue," which kind of blows my mind that we're at a point in time where we've been doing this for 11 years and we've hit legendary status, which kind of doesn't make sense to me because we're just doing a thing that anybody can do. So, but just to hear from people, it's like, "Oh, I've been wanting to play here forever,
Hmm.
and now I get to play here." Or maybe it's like, "Oh, I played Viaduct. This place used to be the Viaduct, and I heard, I heard um, Bad Seed played here, or like Title Five played here." So it's like, yes, Title Five played Rainfest 2010,
Mm.
like when the stage was in the corner, like right there. So it's like pretty cool to see like legendary bands that have like also hit legendary status, and then we're like kind of grouped into the same thing, even though I feel like, you know, it's not that crazy. But that's just me.
Well, and the layout is really nice because you basically right you have the stage where you would anticipate the stage kind of just front and center, but there's that like hallway so people can still get to the bathroom without like having to cut through the entire crowd.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then the cafe's kind of near the front, right? If I'm remembering correctly, so people
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
like safely kind of enjoy a sandwich. But you guys have added a few other things I feel like since I moved. I think you expanded
Yeah,
some
we just
area.
I think we expanded we added liquor to
Mm,
the bar. So now we have an actual bar area. So
okay.
before it was just beer you buy it in the cafe, and there was like a little 21 and up section that in the back. But
Okay.
then we extended that out once we got our liquor license. So now we can have like it had to be like a bigger 21 and up area. So now we have like a separate bar so you can buy liquor and beer at that counter.
Yeah.
So we have like two counters. So we have the sandwich counter, and then we have the bar counter that's in the back of the venue. Or well, it'll be the back of the venue, but the also the front of the venue if you really
Yeah.
depending on where you're looking,
Yeah.
because they're like because of the back of the building is where the stage is, but then also that would be technically the back of the venue where the 21 up area is. So it's kind
Yeah.
of funny how you think about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good layout. It's really inviting. I think that enough people know about it to where like if you're younger, you can go there pretty comfortably, it look like.
Yeah, yeah,
But if you're an old head, you just roll in and kind of do your thing. So it was also interesting because like Tacoma's kind of a sleeper because like there's a good amount of parking. It wasn't a pain in the ass to get, situated. And it was an inviting enough city, a lot of small shops and things. So I feel like you can
yeah.
go and do stuff before the show and kind of enjoy yourself, then hit up real art. And there's like an arcade not far from you too, right? Or am I
Yeah, there's a Outer Orbit opened up maybe
okay?
like uh, over just a little over a year ago. They're also doing some DIY shows too. So which
Nice.
is cool is to have places like Outer Orbit, Slice of the Life Pizza, even like I think the top of Tacoma's. doing shows again. So
Okay.
there's a lot of like restaurants and bars that aren't technically made for shows, but they'll still host some DIY shows there from time to time, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean that's a great strip to be a part of if you're into live music and some of the other adjacent things.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that the other perk about Tacoma is right, if I'm like a band coming down from Vancouver, or even a fan, right, there's a little bit in northern Washington, and then of course there's Seattle. But then between Seattle and Portland, right, that's 3.5-ish hours.
yeah, yeah,
So Tacoma offers something else that isn't far, but it's not too close either.
yeah, yeah.
So when you guys like when you kind of reach out to bands, maybe bands that aren't as familiar with you, or like, do you say like, hey, this is something, that we can offer as a venue, a different type of thing besides like the printing, or is it pretty straightforward, like, hey, we're here, if you want to play, we'll talk
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times well bands will reach out to us about playing shows here. Um, since we're pretty known now, but I think in the earlier days we were like we had Brian Skiffington that would reach out to bands like, "Hey, I'm booking shows at this new spot called Real Art," like, and then he's got his network of people that he's been booking shows
Mm,
for a long time, and he's come back around again. So he took a break from booking shows. Within the last like 2 years, he's been back at booking shows. So he's steady bringing shows here, and then Zach also took a break from booking shows for a couple years, and then he came back with Jag, and then
mm.
with Brainstem. So between Brian Skiffington and Zach Ellis, they were the ones that were doing Rainfest
Oh yeah.
from 2006 to 2016. So they were pretty much the ones that were like doing all of the hardcore and punk shows for like 10 years
Mm,
in the Pacific Northwest, in Seattle and Tacoma, maybe even Olympia area for like a long time.
yeah. And I think another thing I've really enjoyed. So I grew up right in the New Jersey in the 90s, and I got to see a lot of the
Mhm.
East Coast hardcore, a lot of the bigger, more established bands now, New
Yeah,
York
yeah,
hardcore. The only black eye I've ever had in my life actually came from CBGB's with the hardcore show, caught an elbow, what can you do?
yeah,
But
yeah,
when I moved to Washington in 2011, and I didn't know about the Northwest hardcore scene. And now people everywhere are shouting out the Northwest hardcore scene. I'll go
yeah,
to a
yeah,
hardcore show here and somebody will be like, oh, this song goes out to so, whichever band from Seattle, from Portland, Northwest hardcore. And it's like,
yeah,
holy shit. And I've seen Haywire play Seattle. And when I've seen them play here, they'll talk about Real Art or Elko or something like that. So now it's just like, oh, this is a thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
The Pacific
yeah.
Northwest has a pretty long history. Bands like Trial, Undertow,
Mm,
Brotherhood. A lot of there's like a lot of straight edge bands. You got Botch from Tacoma.
yeah.
Um, even was it damn, there's so many bands I can't remember right now. Then you have like bands like Wreck, Power, some of the newer old head bands. So it's like at this point they'd be like old head bands, but like 10, 15 years ago they were like the new bands and like Ill Intent. So
Mm,
there's like a huge long history of like really low key influential bands that I feel like some of the bands like were ahead of their time,
mm,
like especially for Wreck. I feel like if they would have came out maybe like 2 or 3 years later, or even now, that band would be way bigger than they were when they
yeah.
were popping up.
Yeah, it definitely some of this music has blown up. Like Botch is a great example. I didn't even really know about Botch when they were active and busy, but then on their
Yeah, because I
farewell
think
tour,
that band ended in 2001.
yeah.
So it's like they were like the late 90s, early 2000s, and then they I'm I never got to see them because I was getting into hardcore in the late '90s, but I wasn't really, the internet wasn't
Mm.
as prevalent as it is now. So like there'd be bands that I had never heard of, and I'm like, oh, how did I not know about that band? So it's like, and I lived in South Georgia at that time, so it's
Oh,
like there
okay.
was so many bands that I'd never heard of, and then Botch was one of those bands that I found out about after they had already broken up,
Yeah.
and then when I moved out here, and then I finally got to see them when they did their reunion, and I was like, I went and saw them I think twice.
Yeah.
I went to their Tacoma show at McMinimans,
Hmm.
and then their very last show. And what's really funny is me and my friends were in the DVD
Yeah.
at the very end, where I don't know
Yeah.
if they put it in DVD, but we're in the video at the very end credits because
Nice.
my friend Shane shot that whole thing. Um, so
Nice.
he he put me and my friends coming out of the show box. Like, so it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I caught I think the second night of the reunion tour and then I was able to catch the last two. Um and man, just the chaos of those shows is something.
Yeah.
My I don't think it made the DVD, but I shared it with Botch. The last night the crowd was so violent, my knee went through the stage at Showbox, and
Oh shit.
it left a hole. And I was like, well, this was a Botch show, and um,
Yep.
but it was just right. And I'm not a small guy, but to be able to just like crush me like that, but what a
Yeah. Yeah.
blast, man! What an
Yeah.
absolute blast. Um,
Yeah. That was a
and
good show.
and it's so cool to see so many bands like, hey, you know what, we're gonna do a little bit more. We've been out for 10, 20 years. We're gonna throw some stuff down. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of these reunion things have been great. Um, and like you said, there's so many kind of like low key or maybe even ahead of their time bands. So I think the Northwest hardcore scene and kind of the extreme music, right? It's maybe now getting its kind of due.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you kind of foresee? Like, what's next for real art? And then what do you, from Tom's perspective, like, what's kind of coming in like the hardcore punk wave here in the next few years?
Yeah. I think for us, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. Who knows how long this will last, but hopefully we can do this for another 10 years. As far as I'm concerned, like I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that this place is here for everyone. As long as I'm alive, I'm gonna make sure this
Mm,
place is here. So I want to make sure to have the kids keep this going. It's hardcore has always been for the kids by the kids.
mm,
Because I feel like you know it's a youth movement,
mm.
punk and hardcore. So um, I remember like there was a time where you reach your 30s, you aged out of hardcore, and now it's like you got bands that are legacy bands like Terror. These dudes are like my age or a little bit older. They're like still going.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of crazy to see bands like that where I remember the average lifespan of a band would be no more than 3 to 5 years, and to see bands last 20 years is kind of mind blowing.
Oh,
And then also
absolutely.
having bands that from the 80s or the 90s like that broke up, but
Mm,
they're back together and now they're just playing pretty regularly, whether it be festivals or maybe they're doing like a weekender tour or something like that. To see bands like we're gonna have pretty soon, Integrity, Judge, and Earth Crisis playing at Elko with Witness Chamber. So that's something that's pretty wild to see, because I remember how big of a deal it was to have Judge do a reunion, and they did
mhm.
2 nights of the Black and Blue Bowl, and I was living in New York during that time frame, so I got to see Indecision open up for
Okay.
Judge that night, so that was pretty awesome.
Okay. Yeah. I think I've only seen Earth Crisis once, and it was overseas, and Earth Crisis was a band. They had a pretty intimidating. Aura when they were coming around. They weren't just straight
Yeah,
edge. They were, the straight edge band in a lot of
yeah,
people's
for
eyes.
for
And
a
they
long
weren't
time. Yeah,
shy. Yeah.
yeah. They're very militant in their stance of veganism and straight edge.
hmm
And I remember in the '90s, seeing those interviews with Carl, where like the Salt Lake City straight edge movement was very militant, and I
hmm
remember hearing about, because I was like really young, getting into straight edge, and hearing about. I was like, oh, they're like carving X's in the people's backs in Salt Lake City. I was like, that's nuts. Like they're beating people up for smoking cigarettes and drinking. So I was like, that's the wildest thing I ever heard of. Like I could never be that. I was never an intimidating kid growing up, so I was like, there's no way that could be me. But it's pretty hilarious.
Well, and when I saw them, it was an all straight edge show, but the message was definitely like, hey, we want people here.
Yeah,
Um, so it was a bit, but like, man, to respect those guys for holding on to that message for so long,
yeah,
you
for a long
know,
time.
and because it's easy to say, hey, we're straight edge, and then kind of drop some of the beliefs around it, but those guys,
Yeah,
um,
they're
yeah.
when they said forever true, they meant that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it was a great show, and I got to see him, and I was like, I was never straight edge or vegan or anything, and I was like, I really want to see him, so I feel like now being kind of, we'll say, safer to see him, it has been nice to be able to access that without some of the risk that may have been around back then.
Yeah, yeah,
But
for sure.
well, Tara and I've gone to see them a number of times, and I'm seeing them again soon as like the second part of the Summer Slaughter tour with Hatebreed and stuff. And Scott, the vocal, like I don't know if there's anybody who enjoys what he does as much as that guy. He looks
Oh,
so
100%.
happy up there and just like having a blast. What a
Yeah.
great kind of frontman for modern day hardcore.
Yeah, exactly. That guy's been doing it a long time, with like Buried Alive and Slugfest. So he's been in the hardcore scene a lot of years, since like the mid '90s. So pretty much like around when Earth Crisis started doing their thing,
Mm.
that guy's doing his thing too. So it's kind of wild to see all these older dudes still being youthful and still doing this. Like they just started it yesterday. So it's the passion and the love for the music and the community and keeping everything alive is I mean, I feel like that's what we're all in it for. At the end of the day, it's just to make sure that we have a lasting legacy and a scene for people that are outcasted from society, from like where you can be welcomed and
Mhm.
just be yourself.
Yeah, and hardcore is definitely, I mean, the dancing has evolved pretty dramatically, and it's, to the
Yeah.
point of some contention these days, depending on your perspective. But the sounds of the bands has changed. The
Hmm.
fans that show up at the concerts have changed. You still have the old heads, but you have a whole different group of people showing up now, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, everything is so different because you'll see. It's funny to see how when the kids are coming around, like fashion choices,
Hmm
like even just the early 2000s fashion trends that were going around with, skinny jeans and stuff like that. But it's kind of morphed into something else because like late '90s styles come back around, so it's like a mixture of like early 2000s and late '90s,
hmm
like happening at the same time. So you have like white belt hardcore, like if you know what that means, like the sassy, the what do you want to call it, like the metalcore stuff, or it was
Yeah.
like borderline screamo stuff, or like emotional hardcore. So like you have that, but then you also have kids that wearing white face paint, like they're in Yuppicide or something, with
Yeah.
like the 40-inch bottom pants that I was wearing in the late '90s. So it's like Jinko jeans and and ball chain necklaces. Like, but to see all that stuff happening at the same time is kind of mind blowing.
It really, I mean, and like, God, like, speaking of like that time period, Hatebreed is now playing at the Gathering of the Juggalos, right?
Yeah, that's so wild. Who would ever thought that, like ICP and Hatebreed would be on the same bill? I
It's
would have never thought that, because
no.
when I was coming up, like, if you were either like a juggalo or you were in the hardcore, like, it wasn't both. You couldn't be both. And I think we were making fun of a lot of, like, but then I know a lot of my friends that came around, they were, former juggalos that got into the hardcore scene, and like hardcore and punk. So it's kind of funny how things work out, where it's like, oh, I was like a punk kid and I got into hardcore. It's like, well, I was a new metal kid, and
Mm,
then I got into hardcore that way by listening to bands like Slipknot and stuff like
yeah.
that, who are definitely like hardcore influenced.
Yeah. And you talk about inclusivity. I mean, if nothing else, ICP, like the Juggalo community is everyone, you know.
Oh, 100%.
My
Yeah. Like,
goodness.
yeah, they allow, like, anybody who wants to be a part of their community can be part of that community, and there's like no, they treat each other like family, which is kind of very similar to what we do in the hardcore scene. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. And it'll
Yeah.
be a good time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I've never been to a show, but I see them. It's kind of like going to go see Guar. You
yes.
just, instead of getting like weird dyes and stuff, it's all soda. You're just getting
Fago,
doused in
man.
Fago. Yeah.
Fago.
Yeah.
God. I've talked to some venue staff about what it's like to work an ICP show, and they usually say it's worse than Guar because the soda.
Oh yeah. What's funny is, back in the Viaduct days, there was a Juggalo show happened at Viaduct, I think in like 2008 or 2009. Zach Ellis was telling me about how they booked a Juggalo show, and they had to line all the walls and the floors with like basically black plastic to make sure that it didn't get everywhere and seep into everything.
My goodness. Oh my God. I would go to an ICP show. I think at this point,
Yeah,
you got
just
to see it.
just to see what it's about. Yeah,
Um,
100%.
but yeah, I mean, the hardcore community, very strong, very, kind of that family. And this is, of course, every genre has their issues, but
Yeah,
largely speaking, there's that, for a while, like being more of a metalhead, metal was really pressing that. But I think the metal community, there's been a little bit of fracture there from my perspective. So to see
yeah,
hardcore working so hard to like, right, keep that, and bands are like, hey, this is your stage, this is your show, do your thing. I think it's really refreshing to see people fight for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of like, I guess it would be like wrestling with territories. So it's like you have different promoters working in different territories. So you're like, oh, if you're gonna be in like this area, you're gonna book with 777 booking. If you're gonna be up in like Tacoma, Seattle area, you're gonna be booking with like Brainstem Productions, or like some of the other promoters that we have. I think we have like 4 or 5 promoters just in like the Tacoma, Seattle area alone. So it's like, so many different people to work with that know like the scene. So you're like working with, different promoters and different groups that like know their community and know like
mhm,
the bands, and will get you plugged in for different things.
yeah. Um, so yeah, anything else that you see kind of on the horizon here, whether it's sound or kind of just the right, we're getting close to 2030 here. What does hardcore look like in a few years? What does real art look like in a few years?
Yeah. As far as sound goes, like right now I see there's a really huge resurgence of that, like early metalcore stuff, where it was like, I've heard someone refer it to as angel statue hardcore, which is like bands like American Nightmare or Poison the Well. like early Unearthed, a lot of like even As I Lay Dying is as much as that band shouldn't be a band anymore. Like their early stuff was like that, like really fast hardcore influence metal
Mm,
that kind of like blew up. Killswitch Engage, things like that. That
mm,
basically just morphed into metal bands. Like I know like Walls of Jericho is coming out with a new album,
yeah.
and they were like very early, like that early metalcore sound. So it's like it's kind of wild how that's like just circled back around to being popular again. To where it's like because I know metalcore kind of lost its hardcore roots,
Mm,
like when it like if you think about the way metalcore sounds now,
mm,
it's bands like Kubla Khan or whatever, where it's like it seems like it's really divorced from hardcore, but then you got like a lot of these newer bands that are like, oh, we're a metalcore band, but they're like, we're really a hardcore band. Like even
mm,
though they're playing like metallic music, but it's very, very hardcore influenced.
yeah.
So it's getting back to the roots of what metalcore really was. So that's like coming back around. And then you have like the I think fast heavy hardcore is making a comeback.
Okay.
Kind of sounds like what's so there's a new straight edge band in Tacoma called Explode. Um, they're kind of doing that rival mob sound.
Okay.
So I feel like the fast punk hardcore is kind of gonna make a comeback again.
Nice.
And then you got I feel like bands like Witness Chamber and End of Days are
Mm,
kind of getting up there, kind of doing a lot of big things. So I think the Northwest has a lot of heavy hitters right now. So I
yeah.
feel like it's just going to continue to grow. You got bands like Cherub Chains that are playing. Denial Life is doing like
Yeah.
European tours. Even Wake of Humanity, who's been around for like 11 years now, they just went to Europe and did a full European tour. They just got back. So you got legacy bands at this point, and then newer up and coming bands that are just like putting Tacoma and Seattle on the map.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. I mean, one of the bands that I enjoyed seeing that I don't really get to see now, but Apex Predator, right?
Apex Predator, yeah.
Killer. From the Portlandish area, Bolt Cutter, man, like those
Bolt
kids,
Cutter, yeah.
they're doing something right. They've had a few East Coast tours, or there's a few coming up. I can't make it, but
Yeah.
those bands, I feel like they have a lot of promise too. So
Yeah. There's a lot of really good bands from Portland, like Misery Whip,
yeah,
Dry Socket. Yeah, those are like amazing bands. And like speaking of fast punk hardcore bands, like Dry Socket is an amazing band to see live. They have so
yeah.
much energy.
I saw them at Lucky Liquor, man, and that's a small venue, but it was just like a
Yeah.
whirlwind. Um, and I'm a fan of like the anarcho-punk type of stuff, and they had a lot of pamphlets
Hmm.
about different social justice things, which I think is such
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
vital
Absolutely.
piece.
Yeah,
It,
because punk music, hardcore music is inherently political,
hmm
and it's definitely very like left leaning.
hmm
So it seems a little weird to me when there's like some co-opting happening with like Republicans and hardcore, and just makes you think of like just white power fascist nonsense
yeah,
is like what that is. So it's like that has no place in punk music.
no,
Like we're very much anti-establishment, anti-authoritarianism. Like
yeah,
you can't be a cop and be in the punk. So we'll just
no.
leave it at
No. And my friend Jose, who right? Big old Jose, he
yeah.
was I think it was the Airport Tavern. There's like a metal show or something, and some dude like had his shirt off and he had a huge like white power tattoo on his back.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
he got walked out,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. We
know.
had it was crazy because I was at the airport tavern, and
Okay.
then we had a show here. And then one of my volunteers comes and is like, "Hey, there's just some guy with a white power tattoo on his back, just walking down the street." And I was like, "I wonder where the hell did he come from?
Mm,
Hopefully he gets beat up." And then I found out that like he got his shirt ripped off at the show because he
okay.
was wearing a white power shirt. had that ripped off, only to reveal he has a crazy white power tattoo on his back. I was
Yeah.
like, insane. And then he got kicked out of that show, and then he had to go home because he's not
Well,
welcome.
well, and like the fact that he was able to walk, right? That's pretty
Yeah,
fortunate for him.
for sure, for sure.
I feel like if that would have happened, you know, at a different time, that would have been a different outcome. But
Oh, 100%.
but yeah, Dry Saga, they were a lot of fun. Man, there's just so much up there, and there's such an abundance of venues. It's like any night of the week, you can pick 5 or 6 shows to get to. Not
Yeah.
including the kind of like Aska Punk type of shows. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like house venues and things like that. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to see that the DIY movement ethic is still, very alive, and it's gonna continue whether we're part of it or not. So that's why we got to make it to where it's very accessible for people to come in and do their thing and just learn,
yeah.
which is what we do here at Real Art.
Yeah, and it's interesting, kind of wrapping up here, how many people are in multiple facets, right? You'll have a booker who's in a band, and they're separate. He's not booking his own bands or she's not booking their own bands. You'll have photographers who also like will be in a band or they'll be helping to run shows.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so there'll be people doing multiple roles, and it's like, no, this is a love thing. This isn't an
Hmm.
ego thing most of the time, it isn't a
Yeah,
money thing. We know nobody's
it's definitely not a
rolling
money thing.
it.
Yeah, because we, for us, the way we operate is the majority of the money that comes in the door goes to the bands.
Yeah.
So we're only taking enough money to pay the staff on hand and like keep the lights on
Mhm.
and make sure we can pay rent on time. So it's
Yeah.
like we're 100% doing this for the love. When 80%, 70% of the door goes to the bands, you know that we're not in this for the money. We're here because we're servicing our community and giving our people a space to be and enjoy music and have it be accessible to them.
What a great message. And I guess like last question, man, hit us with 3 or 4 of your must-have albums, any genre.
So uh Turnover,
Hmm.
that's uh Peripheral Vision, one of my favorite albums.
Okay.
Uh the Anniversary, um Your Majesty, I believe is the one. They kind of switched it up because they were like kind of like that emo pop punk sound kind of going on, but then they switched it up to do like something completely different.
Hmm.
So if you're into like kind of they went like an alternative rock sound
Hmm.
that was a little bit like 70s influence too.
Okay.
Uh, it's pretty interesting how they kind of like that was their switch up album, and it was like the final album that they did.
Okay.
Um, Earth Crisis, one of my favorite bands. Um, I like two of their albums are my favorites of all time. It's Gamara Season Ends and Destroy the Machines.
Hmm.
I think those are like the foundations of me being straight edge. On
Nice.
top of Minor Threat, uh, I got their complete discography when I was 16, and I was pretty much like ride or die for that band. And then Fugazi as well, one of my favorite bands. Like 13 songs, and was it their their first record? I can't remember what it's called right now.
Yeah. I
And
was
then
never big enough into them, but everybody, of
yeah,
course, it's Fugazi. So,
yeah, for sure. And then another one of my favorites. Let me see. I have like the worst memory of all time. Uh, I just recently got this record, but it's like the old one. Death Threat, Peace and Security. I bought it at Half Price Books.
all right.
I
Oh,
was surprised to
nice.
see that sitting there. Yeah, I was like, "What? Who dropped out of hardcore and
Right.
sold their record collection over at Half Price Books?" But I came up. I hadn't seen that record in a long time. It's a really good one, and it's got the track that Terror covered. I can't remember. Dead at Birth.
Nice.
Tara covered that. I think what 3 years ago.
Okay.
Pretty dope.
Nice. All right, man. Well, hey, Tom, appreciate it,
Yeah,
and I definitely appreciate what you do for the scene in the community. You know, it's great
yeah. I
to
appreciate
have
you.
people like you, and you're a nice guy, despite what you may want to say about yourself. You're a nice guy. It's always fun talking to you,
Appreciate
seeing you
that.
at shows, though.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to see you throughout the years, and good to catch up.
Yes, sir. All right. Well,
All
hopefully
right.
next time I come to visit, I'll catch you at Real Art or at least Elko or something.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. It'll be good to see you in person again.
Yeah, man. All right. I'll talk to you
All
later.
right. All right. Talk to you soon.